excited to have today's guest speaker. It's the latest installment in our speaker series, Clark Grue. I've known Clark for, gosh, well over 5 years, and I know that Aaron has probably known him for well over a decade. He's actually a Grizzly. So in addition to his amazing resume, we're very proud to have a former Grizzly present to you today. So Clark is going to talk to you about how Alberta is expanding on the international stage and what this might mean for you. So for years, as you guys know, there wasn't much need to look for business elsewhere as Alberta was so completely self-sufficient. But times have changed, and now we have a lot more reason to seek out new markets. So the opportunity for Calgary and Alberta-based companies to enter certain global markets is now far more realistic than it may seem. Clark's going to talk to you about that today. And Clark's company, Rainmaker Global Business Development, has been helping local companies access international markets assisted by a partnership with Global Affairs Canada. So he's going to talk about that as well. So what we want to know is, what does this mean for the future of Alberta's job seekers? Could this be a new opportunity to make an impact with a local and expanding company? We'll see. So Clark is founder and CEO of Rainmaker Global Business Development. He is a visionary global business leader who has advised hundreds of organizations on the nuances and strategies of business expansion and diversification around the world. So he's got a very creative, out-of-the-box kind of mind that has guided organizations all over the planet toward exponential growth as they embrace the global marketplace. So he's also applied his expertise to small businesses as well as multinational, public, state-owned companies and government agencies in business events, economic development, and tourism. So in addition to his company, Clark does a lot of work to support the community and our country and even world. And I'll just give you an idea of some of the other initiatives that he's involved in right now. He's also chair of the Meetings Mean Business Bureau, or Meetings Mean Business Canada. He is also an advisor of Destination Canada on their business events portfolio. He's also a member of the executive committee of the board for Convention Centers of Canada. So that's on the event side. But having said that, I mean, I can't list everything. I think Clark's bio is on our website, but I mean, it's truly an honor to have Clark here. Just a few things that he's done in his past. He's been CEO of the Calgary TELUS Convention Center, Vice Chair of the American Chamber of Commerce for Canada, Vice President, Trade and Investment for Calgary Economic Development. He was a founding director of the British Trade Office in Calgary, and he was on the G20 Canadian Task Force for entrepreneur and investment and trade. So we are extremely lucky to have Clark speak with us today and address some of our clients on opportunities that he sees potentially for you, and also what is happening for a lot of Alberta businesses and opportunities for Alberta businesses on the international front. So on that note, Clark, I would like to pass it over to you. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Jackie. And when I hear that introduction, of course, I think my mom must have written it. But anyway, it's great, Jackie, to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be back in working with you. Yes, I was a Grizzly, certainly at one point some years ago, and I've so much loved working in that process with Jackie and the team, and just to engage with different people who are changing careers and finding out, you know, what they could or should do next. And so I really appreciate the experience, Jackie, some years ago. Haven't had the chance to do it again, but I really love what you're doing with that. So congratulations and kudos to the team at Higher Landing for that. So my background is a bit, you know, different maybe than you're used to. I took a rather crooked or non-traditional path through my career. We moved to Calgary. My wife and family moved to Calgary in 1998, and with a company that transferred me here from Toronto in the satellite communications industry, servicing mining companies and so on who were trying to move data. This was eons ago, trying to move data from one part of the world to the other for the markets in Toronto and New York. And so it gave me my first sort of exposure to international business, gave me my first taste of the world that would be my career for 20 plus years, and really set me up for what my career meanderings would take me down. And Jackie shared some of those with you. But what really got me engaged with the international marketplace was I was the first director of a British government office internationally in the world when they set up an office in Alberta to help British companies engage with the marketplace here in Alberta. And Tony Blair did a white paper in 1997, declared that they needed to be back in Alberta. And if you remember any of those days, if any of you are old enough, it was like the gold rush coming into Alberta. This was the place to be. This was the biggest industrial projects in the world were here. It drew companies and professionals from all over the world and all over the country to come to Alberta. Those heady days obviously are in the past, unfortunately, for many people who have been in the oil and gas industry for a number of years. I know that's a lot of you, not all of you, because it was interesting for me to hear from some of you before this chat. Some of my friends from the event industry are here, and other pieces of the economy that are also struggling right now. And I can tell you the events industry, business events are shut down. They've been shut down since middle of March. So there's challenges there as well. And we're starting to see more and more event professionals reconsidering what their future might look like as well. So there's similarities here between what the oil and gas industry has gone through in Canada and what the events industry is going through globally right now. So first off, my heart goes out to you all. It's a very challenging time. It's a challenging ecosystem with our current situation with COVID. Hopefully we're going to see a turn here in 2021 and see some success with both the lockdowns and the vaccinations to get us through this. And I'm sure everybody has an opinion on that. I don't necessarily want to dive too deep into how that's all going to happen, but I'm happy to take questions from my perspective. As the chair of Meetings Mean Business Canada, it's given me a chance to advocate for the industry in Canada. And this opens up many discussions into the political realms as to what is happening, what the government is doing, what the government could be doing to support Canadians and support Canadian companies and people, and seeing our way through the recovery, if you will, whatever that looks like. And I'll kind of leave that at that, but I've been involved heavily with that for the last year. When I took on the chair of Meetings Mean Business Canada in November of 2019, 2020 was going to be a record year. We had all these big events coming here. We had just won the World Petroleum Congress for Canada, for Calgary. It's coming to Calgary in 2023. I was in Russia with the bid team, and they did an amazing job to position Calgary. Took 4 rounds. We won by 1 vote, but we still won. That's all that matters. So the World Petroleum Congress will come here in 2023, and it's I think it's a really important thing to highlight, because it creates an opportunity again to look forward to as the Canadian energy industry to bringing the world to Canada. And as you all know, probably better than I do, Canada has a great reputation within this space, and in many ways we've been somewhat wanting when it comes to telling the world about our expertise. We're involved in many projects around the world. Our big companies our mid-sized companies, our services companies are involved around the world in projects that would be considered remarkable on any stage, from the point of view of how well we do what we do in oil and gas, how we are respectful for people and the environment, which is world-class, absolutely 100% world-class. And also how we approach governance and how we do our work. So ESG, you've heard the term, which everything seems to be pinning to these days, especially when it comes to investments around the world, both public markets and just investments in general. The ESG component, environmental, social, and governance element or scorecard for a company, is critical to them raising any money for any project anywhere in the world. So watching that space obviously is an important element as you look at where projects may move forward and therefore showcase opportunities that could move forward. So when you think about where capital comes from, largely the US, most of the private capital that is in the world today is generated out of the US, Europe second, and then other places of the world. So where are they going to put their money? and where are they going to put their money where the stock markets will actually support and appreciate it? Well, they're going to look for areas where they can actually check off the boxes of ESG. So I think you should be thinking about that as you're looking at where your opportunities might be around the world, because this is definitely guiding a lot of the discussion. Now, the nice thing about being a Canadian is that, you know, and it pains me to no end, but we're amazingly ahead of the game in this, and we're amazingly terrible at marketing ourselves. And you know, we can learn a lesson from our friends in Europe and the US who know how to market. They know how to say, you know, this is what we do, and we do it world class. We do that, we don't market it. So there's opportunity within that, I think, for Canadian companies around the world to get out and actually start to educate the world on how good we are at not only energy, but in every other sector. We also apply this ESG thinking. So I'm proud of us for that. I think we've done a remarkable job on that front, and should be more proud of it. So as you start to look at where opportunities might be, when I look at the oil and gas industry, now I'm a non-oil and gas person who's been on the fringes and plugged into oil and gas for 20 years or so. My role with the British government was to be the oil and gas lead for Canada, for the British government. So I was reporting in regularly on what's happening in the oil and gas industry, what companies are looking at the North Sea, because that was part of my remit, but also what opportunities existed in the supply chain for British companies to come in and supply, at that point, some of these big oil sands projects. So I do have an eye, and I've had an eye on oil and gas for many years. My business partner, Tim, here at Rainmaker, is a geologist who, you know, built an oil and gas company. They sold it to Shell, et cetera. So we have a very close affinity and love for the oil and gas industry, and more than that, just respecting what it does and the good work that it does. So when I look at the world then, and I think about the oil and gas industry, and as far as Rainmaker goes, we have, of course, people in different places around the world who are feeding in information as well on what's happening. But you know, basically the traditional jobs within the industry are mostly residing within developing oil and gas markets. So think of Nigeria, think of Venezuela, think of China. Now, those are not necessarily all the places you may want to live and do your work. So that becomes a bit of a problem. But coming back to ESG a little bit, when you look at the more developed developed economies, they're often looking for, their oil and gas industries are looking for efficiencies and ESG focus and how to do this more efficiently. So depending on what you do, there could be opportunities in either one of those. And as you think about your skill set, think about how you might place on that. Then, of course, there's the leap, if you will, or the bridge to other industries. And when I look at the non-traditional industries that are thriving, or non-traditional for Canada, that are really starting to thrive and take off globally, the tech sector, of course. And I say that carefully, because when you say the tech sector, what the heck does that mean? And you know, it's so broad. Coding and online, anything to do with that is really fintech, and all those different things are growing dramatically, because as we rely more and more and trust more and more online interactions, there becomes more and more opportunity in that space. So I'm sure you know that, you've heard that, certainly heard it from Calgary Economic Development as they're pushing that as the future here in Calgary. Healthcare, health services, health products, PPE and safety products, all of those growing dramatically. Bitcoin, of course, you know about, and there's also within traditional industries, anything that makes them more efficient. So there's opportunity in natural resources, there's opportunity in tech and transportation and education, et cetera. I don't want to dive too deep in any of these, Jackie, because I just want to kind of get through a little bit here and then go on to questions, because I'd love to hear from you guys. You know, as I think about the real opportunities for a lot of folks these days, as we shift a little bit in, and I think we're going to see a move towards the gig economy, where project-based work will become more prevalent, as companies are maybe a little bit hesitant to hire full-time employees. They'll start to rely more on consultants and experts that have certain pieces they can bring to a project. Now, this is not necessarily all bad. You know, you can do quite well in those types of roles, as well as many of you will know, from the oil and gas industry has used them for years. So I would see that continuing to evolve. My first view on this was about 10 years ago in the UK, when at that point, 55% of people employed in the UK were already not full-time employees. They were basically being paid on a project-by-project basis or as a consultant. So it's an interesting shift that we're starting to see, and certainly COVID is going to accelerate some of that. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean there's not going to be jobs out there. It just means we have a different mix of opportunities for different professionals at different stages in their career. And I think being aware of some of that, and obviously, Jackie, this is more your space than mine. I won't go too far, or else I'll say something wrong here. But I think there's a different opportunity. So ESG, education is a big part. When we think about the globalization, which is now being termed slowbalization by some, that we've actually slowed our globalization trends even before COVID. But as we're continuing to interact with new markets around the world, something to think about as well is the areas of public speaking, consulting, and education. Many places around the world are looking for experts, professionals who can come in and either train their people, train their particular company perhaps, on various things. And this is not simply technical training. It can be training on Western business practices, on educating little kids. It can be a variety of pieces. Canadians are very well respected in this space. There's a lot of Canadian companies that do this privately and do very well by it. And there's an opportunity that resides in this to transfer some knowledge and expertise into some developing economies that want to learn and will be happy to pay for it. In the Gulf, in Dubai, this is a huge trend. So it's worth being aware of. And I'll just take a couple of minutes, Jackie, and then I'll throw it to you for questions. So as we think about the world as it's sort of evolving, and Rainmaker's been around since 2007, helping companies, as Jackie said, at that time, a lot of it was inbound to Canada, Alberta. And now we've really pivoted into this outbound activity, because as Canada's economy has matured, if you will, obviously the opportunities that exist in Canada are different. We're not a large market, so a lot of companies find it difficult to scale in Canada. The only way they're truly going to get to that next level of scaling up is either to be acquired, which we've seen in the oil and gas industry many times, or to go and develop a new market somewhere else and bring back some of those profits and some of that funding back into the Canadian headquarters and grow the company here. I would dearly love to see more and more of that happen in Canada. I think we have tremendous message, tremendous experts, tremendous people that can do this. Our challenge, again, coming back to my opening statements, was on the marketing front, and us getting better and better and better at that. So what Rainmaker does here is we work with companies who have an ambition to go international or have an ambition to go into a different market. And so they may already have gone to the States, but now they're really interested in the Middle East, or they're interested in Africa, or whatever it might look like, or obviously a country in Africa. So what Rainmaker does there is we work with the company to look at a market, evaluate it, analyze it through the scope of a pestle analysis, and come up with a structure or opinion on the market from that company's lens. So whether that company could be successful or not. And then quite quickly from there, if we feel they could be, move into an activation plan to get them engaged with the market as quickly as possible. That's where our global partners around the world are so important. So having people on the ground in different markets around the world allows Rainmaker to do some of this work. We also work very closely with the Trade Commissioner Service, the Alberta government, where when they have people in the market, this is very much in concert and in tune with them to help the company, the Canadian company, become successful in that market as quickly as we can. So involved in that work is research. It's, well, first off, it's identifying companies. It's identifying companies who might want to expand. We have a number of what I call special agents in Rainmaker that are out basically talking to companies, asking them if they want to, if they've thought about expansion internationally. And if they have, come and talk to Rainmaker. We can take you through our process. We can help you do it. We can help you actually evaluate and activate the market. And oh, by the way, the federal government has a program that will cover 75% of those costs. So it's a really nice offering that we're putting in the market right now. And a lot of our friends who are sales type people and know a lot of companies, they're all over this. They're out talking to them saying, hey, you got to get on this, in a sense, before it goes away. This is a world-class program. I just want to say, I haven't seen it anywhere else in the world. I know that the Netherlands is currently considering something similar to really help their companies broaden their international horizons. I think Canada has actually taken a very forward-thinking view on this, and they have established this program. It's highly subscribed by our friends back east, as you can imagine, but less subscribed by Western Canadian companies. So we're really pushing to get more Western Canadian companies involved and engaged in the program. And then of course that provides, so when we have a company come in and we're working with them, we've just put in, I think about 10 applications last week on a deadline for companies who want to use the program to go into various markets around the world. When we have those approvals from the government that they're going to support these projects, we then go to work on the research, on the analysis, on reaching out to the market and testing their value proposition against the market, see if it's going to create resistance or create opportunity. And then through that, help the company engage with the market. So while we're doing that, some of the skills we really value inside of Rainmaker, of course, is the ability to data mine and process. We have a number of databases we use to grab the information, but the amazing thing about data today, as I'm sure all of you know, is it's not about finding the data, it's about curating the data and making it relevant to the company. So that part's critical. We have a number of language skills within Rainmaker, but you can never have enough, because as we go into a certain market, especially as the world, continues to be connected globally, language skills are a critical element. Yes, you can get around like this guy did for years in international with English only. That's the only language I speak, regrettably. But there's a tremendous advantage to having a language skill that can really open up a market. So we look for those skills to work with here in Rainmaker. We work with our staff here downtown in Calgary, and also our global partners both in Canada and around the world. So we are basically looking to bring value to these companies, help accelerate their international expansion, and then by that work with them down the road so that they can become fully successful in another market around the world. So Jackie, maybe I'll stop there. If I don't stop, then I'll just keep going. And I don't want to start rambling here. So maybe I'll just stop there. It gives you a little picture of who we are. But Jackie, maybe I'll throw it back to you in case you have some questions, or maybe the other folks have some questions. Love to answer questions.
For sure. You guys, would anyone like to present Clark with questions that they might have?
Yeah, thanks very much, Clark. That was a great presentation. I really appreciate that. Especially on I was really intrigued actually by your strategy of your secret agent approach to approaching companies. I was just wondering, so you talked about kind of bringing that activation plan if Rainmaker finds that your client indeed has a feasible market. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what that relationship looks like between Rainmaker and that company? Maybe more specifically, as you're do you stay with them for a certain period of time, sure, or provide online consult?
Yeah. No, thanks, Mark. It's a great question. So basically, this all happens inside of, let's say, 8 months to a year. So we start with a client. We figure out where they're thinking of going. We figure out whether that's logical. Some companies I talk to and they're, I want to go to Nigeria and Australia. And I say, why those two companies? And well, I have a buddy in Australia and I sold a piece of kit to Nigeria once. And that's about as deep as it gets. And so, we're taking them to the US anyway, but so, let's just think about this. So, and that's okay. Companies and entrepreneurs and CEOs and C-suite and guys and ladies who are in charge of companies, they have an ambition usually. And then from there, we hone it in. We build a bit of a plan, a program. Here's all the things we're going to need to look at. And here's the things we might need to help you get there. We put that into the government. So that's step one, Mark. And we make an application. And then while we're waiting for the approval from the government, which can take 2 months to get, we start diving into the value proposition of the company. So we sort of do stress tests on, okay, you think that your clients, your customers buy from you because of X, but maybe it's not X, maybe it's Y, maybe it's your service instead of your product, things like that. So we just sort of poke a bit harder at, is your value proposition really defined? So that when we turn the corner, we get approval from the government, we turn the corner onto the market, we've done that work with the client. We understand them. We understand what they think is their unique value proposition. And we have a better message to take to market. So then we move into the actual market evaluation and market activation stages. And those take another 4 or 5 months. So all of this wrapped up is about 8 months, 9 months that we take them through the program. When we're done this particular program, we don't want to lose the client. We keep working with them. We provide them additional information that we have on the market or other things. And then this program, actually, we can reapply every year. So we could take them back to the same program and apply for a different market. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Mark.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. No, and it's really interesting too about then going back to maybe seeking additional markets too. So yeah. Absolutely.
They can look at a different market, or we can go deeper on that one, or use a different toolkit to hit the market again. So there's lots we can do with this program, and just Alberta companies just aren't aware of it, frankly.
Yeah.
So Clark, do you take on anybody? Like, what's involved? What kind of companies would be required to qualify?
Yeah, good question, Jackie. I'll say almost yes. What's been interesting, we kind of have helped a lot of companies in the oil and gas industry for years. So it's very comfortable, oil and gas, power, infrastructure, that sort of thing. What I've discovered is, the quick answer is yes, any company that could export something. In fact, I find it fascinating.
What about delivery of a service?
Yes, absolutely. So I find it fascinating. I asked the question of Minister Ng's office in Ottawa in February, because the tourism industry, who's now hurting, tourism is an export. I mean, you have to think that through a couple of times. Basically, tourism is an export because you bring an international person into your hotel or your attraction, and they bring fresh dollars into the Canadian economy. That's an export of a service. So yes, services, absolutely. So there's a few companies that don't qualify, cannabis companies for one, that you're not allowed to actually put through the program. But generally, it's wide open. What Rainmaker's good at, frankly, is B2B and B2G. So if you're selling to business or you're selling to government, that's usually where we sit. The consumer end, so selling to consumers, absolutely, companies can use the program to elevate their brand and get more online sales. We have a company actually that has a skin cream that wants to go to the US. Yes, we're going to help them. Not our area of expertise all the time, but we can help at least get through a lot of the process and the thinking. So
we've got some clients, I'm sure, that would love to help you with that project, Clark.
Okay, brilliant. Well, it's interesting because influencers come up, right? When you start talking about consumer goods, now you're talking about the influencer group, right? Like, do you go and get a celebrity to push your brand? That's the way it's done nowadays, right? So we're looking at what that looks like, which is a whole new world for us. But we know there's other folks that understand the space very well, and we can partner with them to do it as well. So
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay, Marian.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi. Yeah, thanks for the talk. I mean, this is an area that I'm really interested in, so I was just absorbing all the information. You were mentioning like Canada's expertise on ESG. How do you see that fit into with emerging markets like China and India and Indonesia and things like that?
Yeah, it's a really great question, Marian. so I guess when I first think about ESG, I think about the developed markets because they are so tied to the traditional investor and the markets themselves, the stock markets. And if you follow this at all, you see that almost every fund now has an ESG sort of requirement. And in the developing countries and projects that are happening in developing countries, or I mean, China's not a developing country, but not non-Westernized country, I'll say. It's a little bit less. I want to be careful there. It's not less important because the Chinese are very concerned about ESG, and even though some people in this side of the world don't necessarily understand that, they are. Because they want investment to continue in their country as well. And so I think it's an important element. And then if you decouple the ESG moniker from just Canada expertise, Canadian expertise alone is seen very highly around the world. So I've been to very few places where people aren't excited that you're Canadian instead of an American. Now, it's not against the Americans. It's just that the Canadians we have a very good brand of being trustworthy, of doing what we said we'll do, and frankly, over engineering and over regulating everything. So we're good at that. And if that's and in today's world, in today's very connected social media world, how you're looking after the communities you live in, the environment, and how you're governing your business matters. It really does. It's no longer something for the industry to forget about. It has to be, focused on. So I don't know if I'm answering your question very well, Marion, but I do believe this, because it's so critical to the stock markets, because the investors are looking at this, it will become important to every country in the world.
Right.
In my opinion. My wife keeps telling me when I do these things, I have to say everything I've said is in my opinion. So just my opinion.
Thank you. Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
I'm curious about the cultural aspect. So when Canadian companies go to a different country to do business,
yeah.
How important is learning about their culture? Do they typically meet in between, or is it more one-sided? You go to China, for example, and you have to learn Chinese ways, for example.
Yeah. A great question. You know what I would say, and this is where Canadians actually have an advantage, accept that their culture is different. And we're pretty good at that as Canadians. We go into a place like China or any other market. Colorado, I mean, guess what? Colorado is different, even than Alberta a little bit, but it is different. They're Americans. So I always try to emphasize the importance of this, Marion, is that you're going into Mexico, and maybe you've gone to Mexico every year for the last 20 years to a beach resort, but you're going now to do business. You better think about that differently. You better understand. You should understand that they're going to do business differently. And if you, for instance, in Brazil, you're going to have to go for lunches and dinners and all sorts of social things before they even talk business. In the Middle East, you don't start doing business till midnight. The kids go to bed, you have dinner, everyone goes to bed, and then you talk business. It's just the way they do it. And so if you come in and say, no, I want to do it. I want to have lunch at noon, and I want to be done my day at 5, and you can do that, but guess what? You're not going to do any business. So what advantage is it to try to educate any culture on the way we do it? So I always say, when you go into a market, listen and listen and listen before you say anything. Like just take it in, understand how they do it, read whatever you can, and by all means use a local Sherpa, for lack of a better way to say it, but somebody who understands the marketplace to help you understand. Otherwise, you're wasting your money, you're wasting that trip, you're wasting the opportunity, frankly. So that's my take on it. It's critically important.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question.
Bill, you had a question.
Thanks for the presentation, Clark. Yeah, really a good boots on the ground perspective.
Thanks, Bill. Good to see you.
What I had is a question. Well, sorry, I'm going to back up. In the oil and gas industry, I absolutely remember how Canada was the leader on sour gas processing. Like, we were the world leader. We were taking that around the world, the knowledge, experience, the safety, the everything. So it'd be great to replicate something like that again.
Agreed.
What I was wondering about is with the cutbacks the government's doing to the universities, specifically U of A and U of C, are really talking about becoming research hubs. That's going to be their funding, their future, where they're going to get a lot of their revenue. Do you have any connection to them, or is there anything you would want to identify them as gaps where there's a real opportunity that, again, out of universities, companies can be initiated and be taken worldwide on what they're doing?
Yeah, yeah, and it's a really intriguing discussion, Bill, because I totally agree with you, and I think the UFC, like Sate and Nate, have done a really nice job in the more the services end of things, in taking their expertise to the world. I've been impressed with both those schools. U of A and U of C have been almost a bit more traditional. They've done international as well. Like, don't get me wrong, they've got some great, global MBAs and stuff that have been stood up that are excellent. But, when you get into more of the technical stuff, the technical development, that, as you said about sour gas or what we've done with flaring, that the US is just catching up to on flaring, right? So there's things that we've done naturally in the ecosystem that have been spawned, in a sense, from the universities. I haven't seen, to be honest, our Canadian universities really embracing a global strategy, apart from trying to get international students. I mean, that's the nature of their business. And I wonder, Bill, if it's academia versus entrepreneurialism, and just a missing there, because Nate and Sate seem to get it a little bit more than the universities do. It could be that they need to rethink how they do what they do in the world. But the truth is, I think there's a huge opportunity for both schools in multiple areas. I mean, U of A's leadership in the health space is world class. Like, there's tremendous things happening at our universities across Canada. But I see other universities being a lot more proactive or aggressive on going to the world. I like the thought, though, what you just pinned onto of with the sour gas. So the innovation, if you will, meeting the regulations and creating a new way to do things that is way better for, well, the ESG conversation again, there it is again, but just better for everything. That is what we've done so well in Alberta for so many years. And, the world actually would like to learn from us. We just don't go out and tell them. I mean, when we set our regulations in place that Mexico has copied for the oil and gas sector, they came to us. It wasn't Alberta going and saying, hey, Mexico, you guys should look at what we've done and come on in. I was in some of those conversations years ago about that. And it was always like, people just came to us. We never had to go to the world. And I think that's the shift change we need to start thinking about, Bill, is the world's not just coming anymore. When you have the largest industrial projects in the world, they come. It's like a big spotlight, good and bad. We can leave that off the table for now, but good and bad. Now, not so much. It's harder to position yourself as that innovation and thought leader, which we are on the world stage, without being a bit more aggressive about how we talk about it. But I love your idea of coming back to universities, because they're well respected. Universities, academics, professors, they're well respected leaders, and especially when it comes to research and so on. We should be shining the light on them a lot more.
Right. Yeah, it may be a good avenue or need to talk to you a bit.
Yeah. Well, I've got lots of friends over at U of C for sure, and it's an interesting. We haven't had this conversation quite this way, Bill. So I appreciate the idea you're triggering in my head for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Clark, you need to be an ambassador to some country.
Well,
Just saying.
That would be fun. I'll put it that way. Maybe in 10 years when I'm done, stuff I got to do right now.
Yeah, for sure. Did Ed, would you like, and then it'll come to you, Vic. Ed, would you like to ask your question?
Okay, thank you. Recently, we've seen, obviously, a lot of our work go on online in education and training consulting area, at least here in Canada. And I'm just wondering if that's reflected in the rest of the world as well. Can we expect to see a demand for online delivery of training and consulting and education?
Yeah, really insightful question, Ed. My quick answer is absolutely. Everything is going there. In fact, one of our clients that I don't know if you know the company Xpan. Maybe I shouldn't be saying their name. Sorry, just erase that. Rewind the tape and just we'll start again. Great Calgary company who's done a number of online training pieces for like blue collar, I'll call it type delivery. What I mean by that is, here's how you fix a pump. Here's a video. Here's a training, etc. They've done a really nice job of developing a model around that, and they're going into the world, and they have tremendous interest. And I think what we're seeing is that I think the world, Ed, is starting to get comfortable with the idea that we can actually do this and learn something. I'm a live event guy, so for me, this is not the way I'd like to be meeting with you guys. But it's still efficient and it's still effective for a lot of things that we can actually learn and be taught. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for this, and a growth opportunity for Canada to really get into this space in every sector. Like, so when you look at oil and gas, you start to break down the different elements, and it's vast. You know, what are all the different areas that we could actually deliver training and expertise and experience and transfer that again into, in some cases, and what blew me away, I was in Dubai 10 years ago at least now, and I ran into this Canadian guy from Toronto who was doing like basically Western Business 101 classes for the Emiratis. And he had this room full of, you know, men. Unfortunately, I think there's a couple women were allowed to be in it, but that's a different story. We won't go there, Jackie. But anyway, so he had these, and he was there for like a week. He was paid, he brought his wife over, they stayed in a beautiful hotel, and he was paid like $10,000, ridiculous, I think a week. But anyway, you know, just a fantastic model. They're thirsty for learning from what we've experienced. I think that's the message. And then for us to take that and put it online is an absolute opportunity. Also public speaking, like there's a conference last weekend with the Canadian Association of Public Speakers. And I was saying to them the same thing, like, get on, like, you guys are all professional speakers, and there's people around the world that want to hear from Canadians. Not to sound arrogant, it's just that we have a certain global brand that's very positive, and we can do a lot with it. So it's a great question, Ed, and I think it's a huge opportunity.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks
Excellent
for that.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Vic, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Great conversation. Thanks for all the information. It's just amazing to hear because we're so sort of Alberta centric, Western Canadian centric, and just opening up the view to the world. It just really astounding to see what kind of opportunities are available. My question to you is, post-COVID, how do you see the whole scene changing? I mean, it's been 9 months, so we've kind of adapted to that. Where I'm going with this question is, typically when you deal with Canadian companies dealing internationally or vice versa, you're expected to travel, you're expected to meet. These representatives are, you know, there's value to the handshake, as conventional as it might sound. That's all being, you know, it's put on a pause, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe in a year it might be different. In the interim, how do you think Canadian companies or their counterparts around the world are going to cope up with it? What kind of tools will be available to them or will be required to fill the gaps? And, you know, do you see any impact because of COVID? It's a long question. Sorry about that. But,
no, it's fine. It's fine, Vic, and thank you for that. So I'm going to come at this from the sort of the trade show element. So, you know, one of the quite often when you would travel the world to do business deals, you'd probably go, there'd be some sort of event, you know, you know, the Abu Dhabi Oil and Gas Show or something. You'd go over, you would do the event, and then you would attach a bunch of meetings, you'd shake hands, as you said. And that would be how you'd start to develop relationship capital in a market or continue growing it. And so we've lost that. There are some, you know, there's a couple elements to this that I want to just touch on, because it's, you know, we're all living this all the time these days, and we all know it's challenging. You know, one, I'll say, boy, this interaction that we're doing on Zoom, last year, I never did this. Like, so, you know, I think a lot of us sort of, and the Skype calls I would do, because I mean, I would have calls with my global partners, and it'd be crappy, it'd be terrible. It would just be, quality would be bad, and you'd get frustrated, right? You couldn't, like, so kudos to Zoom and to all these groups that have actually really ramped up the ability for us to do this. So this does change the game to some extent. The ability for you and me, Vic, to actually have a conversation here. And you could be, I could be in Calgary as I am, or I could be in India, it doesn't matter. Had a great call this morning with a guy in India. And that the ability to do that so easily is revolutionary. It is gonna change how we do this. Now, I also believe that it takes 7, 8, 12 of these 12 meetings like this to get to what it would be like if you walked in my office, Vic, and we had a coffee together and chatted, and you just have it's a different feel. It's a different, body language, everything just changes the interaction so quickly. So a live interaction is so much more powerful than, a whole bunch of these. So I'm happy with where technology has taken us. I still think we need the live events, the live opportunities. And the challenge, I think, is going to come down to people's confidence in the travel industry. So are you confident to actually get on a plane? Are you confident to stay in a hotel in, name a city, in Germany or wherever? Are you confident in that? And I think that's going to be somewhat regional. Like, I think what we're going to, people's opinion right now on the US, I'll just suggest, is not exactly, stellar, like everybody wanting to go, because at least Canadians, we have a bit of an opinion in general on how the US has handled this. Maybe other countries you'd feel more comfortable going to, New Zealand or others, right, where they've been very, very good with this. So I think it's definitely going to impact things. The other side of it, I think that's going to turn, Vic, and it's going to be an interesting thing to see how corporations handle this, is the psyche around corporations, companies, sending their staff somewhere. So now, not only are they, that's money, which is fine. They're used to spending business development money, that's fine. But now they're taking on the risk as well of sending you over there to meet with them and potentially get sick. And then, there's a risk element that involves insurance that I'm concerned of. It's kind of that nagging thing at the back of my head. I sit on the Canadian Travel and Tourism Roundtable. We're constantly telling the federal government, let us travel, do rapid testing. That's what we're saying, because I do believe in that. I believe we need to let people travel if we can confirm that they're okay. But there's going to be this nagging piece, I think, for corporations to start sending their folks out. So long answer to a long question, but thanks, Vic. It's a very interesting one that we're grappling with all the time as to how that's going to turn.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the introduction.
No, it's good. Thank you. It's a great question.
Yeah, so exciting to hear that, right? And I feel even within the restricted environment over the next year, at least, when things may normalize, there's going to be opportunities, right? And I'm just curious about that. So
yeah, I think so too. I think you're right. And watch this space, because I think it will start to turn quickly. Because once the first company goes somewhere and starts to do something, the other everybody's a Me Too company, right? Oh, they're doing that over there, I got to do that too. So it's going to happen for sure.
And your comment about the travel, it definitely touched the chord. I mean, I almost took a flight this week to go to India for personal reasons, but it's just the appetite, right? My appetite would be different than a corporation appetite, right? So
yeah, personal for sure. You're right. Personal's different, right? I mean, you do it for that personal connection, but the corporate side has me a little worried, to be honest, how that's going to roll out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Vic. And Clark, does the corporate travel industry keep the travel industry alive? Or what would you say the split is? Corporate versus personal.
Yeah, it's I would say it's about 50-50, to be honest, in Canada, Jackie. These planes and hotels and so on, they need the friends and family traveler too, the leisure travel, but it's the business travelers that spend more money, that just, it takes one of them. It's a 1-to-4 ratio, basically. It takes 4 leisure travelers to make up one business traveler. Now, so it's an interesting dynamic there, but both are important. And we talk a lot in the Canadian stage, I guess, you know, how do we get Canadian confidence back, even just in Canada? Like, how are we going to get Canadians to travel across the country? Because even that generates revenue for so many businesses, right? Whether they're a taxi driver, a hotel operator, and hotel operators in Canada, you know, they're all SMEs. Like Marriott owns 2 hotels in Canada. That's it. They own one in Toronto, one in Calgary. That's it. Everything else is an SME owner, some family who's put their life into this hotel, you know, and they're just being decimated with, you know, less than 10% occupancy. It's really sad, actually. We're losing them.
How long do you see those businesses hanging on for?
Well, the Hotel Association of Canada just did a survey, and it looks really, really dim, to be honest. Some of them won't last another month. Many of them won't last another month. And a lot of them are saying we might be able to hang on for 2 or 3 months, and then we're going under. So it's really, I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's really, it's sad. And quite often we think, oh, that's the Marriott, that's the Hyatt, that's the Westin, that's the, you know, Accor, that's the, you know, the big hotels. Those are just marketing groups. So, you know, these are small businesses. These are usually families, Canadians who are really, really hurting. So anyway, so to get Canadians even moving, and, you know, and there's some great deals on hotels. Like, that's the other thing. It's like, man, you can find some really good deals, you know, right now on staying at hotels. So I encourage you to think about it if you can.
So what advice then would you give somebody coming from the live events industry as a profession? Like, what would you recommend their next steps be to get back to work? Because I know we've got at least a handful here on online. Right, Ken?
Hey, Clark. Hey, buddy.
Ken.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Give me the Holy Grail, Clark.
Good to see you, man. Yeah. Well, I wish it was that simple, Ken. You know that. You know, and I obviously talked to a lot of folks in the industry across the country for the last year, as you know, Ken, and it's tough. It's tough. What I tend to say is, listen, if you think about an event professional of any type, someone who puts on events, produces events, is involved in events of any type, the skills that you use in those events are very applicable to every other industry. So when you think about your organizational skills, your technologies, your creative skills, Ken is one of the most creative event designers in the country, and his ability to actually take an idea and a conceptual idea and make it real is incredible. So how can that, like, not that I think live events are coming back. We're going to do live events again. It's going to happen again. The question
and that also includes professional sports, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's live.
All of that stuff, right? Festivals and sporting events and concerts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These all take very, very smart people behind the scenes to make. They don't just happen. And I'm often shouting this from every building I can, Jackie, that this is not an invisible industry. You know, 229,000 people rely on this industry. And so, but this stuff doesn't just happen. You know, you walk into some event or some concert or festival, it doesn't just happen out of thin air. A lot goes into those. And it's basically a project management is what it is. Like, you're taking on a project, you're taking care of all the risks, mitigating the risks, and you're standing up an event that is made available for consumers of some sort. It's an amazing project management business or industry. And so Ken knows this very well. So, you know, the biggest challenge is, are you going to wait till it comes back, which I think will happen in 2021, probably late 2021, but 2021, are you okay to, to ski and just basically hang out and have fun? Or are you looking to I hate the word pivot, because pivot means you're leaving something. I don't think you always have to leave something. I think it's a matter of evolving into perhaps another industry or another part of a profession that will allow you to broaden what you do or apply it differently to another industry. And so, I mean, online, of course, has become real for events. There's a lot of them. A lot of us, I know we're all zoomed out. Not for this one, Jackie, and this one's great, but
no, we are zoomed out.
Yeah, you get zoomed out, right? And we're just so hungry for a live event, and I know they'll come back in the next year. But online events will not go away. I don't think live events will mean online events will go away. I think they're going to be used for a lot of technical presentations, a lot of information sharing and the transfer of information and intelligence. But the part that will have to come back to live is the interaction, the human interaction, the relationship capital that you build at an event. So Ken, I don't know if I'm helping you at all, but it's an interesting challenge for event professionals as as you do look to perhaps pivot. What I'm astonished by in the event world is all of these skills that they have to organize an event are organizational and business development, marketing skills, creativity skills that can be applied to so many other companies.
Interesting.
Great. May I ask a question, Jackie?
You bet.
Great. So thanks, Clark. Thanks for that. And yeah, preaching to the choir here. So I have total confidence. Obviously, I've been connected a long time with that. Economic development is pushing their stuff forward. You guys are pushing your stuff forward. Tourism Calgary and that kind of stuff. But I think that based on the timelines that we're dealing with COVID, we're at an unusual part. It's certainly within Calgary and Alberta, where it's a lot of people are getting down on the city and the province itself, and sort of when's the bottom going to fall out. And I remember when I lived in Winnipeg for 5 years, I used to say to people that Winnipeg would be a fabulous place if people stopped apologizing for everything that they think is wrong with Winnipeg. What would you say are two key points or whatever that all of us who, because we're connected to Higher Landing, have probably already gone through some sort of loss, and have picked ourselves up by the bootstraps, and we're looking at the positive side, but there's still the rest of the province who is literally wakes up every morning and says, this is never going to be what it was like, or which it may not be, but oh my God, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Should we be looking at moving? Should we whatever? What can we say are the two key things to keep the rest of the citizens of Alberta focused on, to say, we got this, we got, what would you say?
Yeah, Ken, that's a big question. And I think there's a couple things that come to mind, and I don't know if it's PC for me to say this or not. Maybe Jackie will say I shouldn't be an ambassador after this, but one of the things is let's quit listening to our politicians worry. I appreciate the health element, and I appreciate the rules, and I'm all for that stuff. But we need to start hearing some optimism, Ken, and I think that's what you're pinning to here. The question is, where's it going to come from? I mean, the Premier has tried, I think, in a few places to plunk some optimism as I've followed him. But I think we really need that sort of more positive approach to what we're doing. This is what Alberta is. Alberta's always been a land of opportunity, not a land of woe is me. It's never been a land of woe is me, as far as I know. It's always been a land of opportunity, and this is tough because I know the situation that many of you are in. So this I don't want this to sound hollow or anything, but we all need to sort of start to be positive about where we're going together, and it is about being together. It's yes, it's celebrating what Adabotics is doing in warehousing. I love it. It's fantastic. Those are good stories, but we need lots more other good stories, and they're out there. And I think we need to listen to them, embrace them, and get behind them. Not necessarily wait and expect the Economic Development Group, the Chamber, Tourism Calgary to fix it. Like it's going to take Calgarians coming back together as a group and taking this on and finding opportunity. I don't know what else to say on that, Ken. It's a really tough one.
Who's that spokesperson? Is it you? Because certainly when Adam was at the Chamber and we were going through the 2016, gas recession, Adam's leg stepped up and championed that. Right at Mary's got her own thing going. Who is that person? Who's getting in front of the cameras and talking to the news every night and celebrating the fact that as much as it's bad that maybe we had 30 COVID deaths yesterday, but we also have the vaccine and we're starting to vaccinate.
Great.
Who's controlling that narrative?
Yeah. Well, I think who's controlling the narrative, unfortunately, is the politicians and the health professionals, which I get. Like, and you look at any province and the country, that's what's out there. you know, you know what, Ken, I think it's more than one person. I'll be bluntly honest. I think it's more than one person. I think it's a mix of people who are, you know, who are doing cool things. If Rainmaker is one of those, great. We're happy to be part of that choir. You know, it does take leadership though. So I hear your point. I'm not suggesting, you know, that we don't need more new leadership. I think we need new leadership in the city, in our city. We need some visionary new leadership in our city. So, you know, there's a number of questions or answers I'm trying to throw into there. But by the end of the day, what will be the ideal thing is a choir of 100 Calgarian business leaders who just get excited about Calgary again. That's what we hoped for with the Olympic bid that we lost, you know, but we need that rallying cry again. And I think that's what really would make a big difference. I mean, when we won the World Petroleum Congress last summer, this event is the largest thing that could happen to Calgary apart from the Olympics. We got 1 day of press. 1 day of press, that was it. Okay, no big deal. This is a huge win for Calgary. And we don't celebrate stuff like that. We don't look forward and celebrate unless it's something like the Olympics or maybe the Stanley Cup. So I'd love to talk more.
You did great. I put you on the spot. Your answers were great. Now you have my wheels turning because I think maybe we need to get together, you know, the people who spearheaded, you know, the Congress and the Olympic bid and those kind of things. And we need to, you know, change their mindset, and they need to go out and champion for Alberta as opposed to championing for a specific thing. So thank you. You danced around that really great.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Clark, I know that we said we'd go until 1, but are you okay to go till about 1:15?
I am. I've got. Yeah, I didn't even realize we were past 1. So that's a good sign.
We just have a few more questions, and I do want to touch upon the internships. Yep. Okay, Jamin, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, please. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Clark. It was a great presentation, and I was really mesmerized with your accomplishments. So my question is about agriculture. Since Canada is so developed in agriculture, what are the prospects you see taking Canadian companies to global level? I'm asking this because Canada is producing more in this 4 or 5 months of period than most of the other countries are producing.
Yeah, thank you, Jamin. Really good question. What I would say about what we're good at in Canada is producing a large amount of crops, and largely that's because we have large amounts of land. One of the challenges that I think is in other countries around the world is trying to produce crops on smaller pieces of land. So our challenge with Canada, I think, is taking what we've learned on the macro scale and putting it into a micro. And this goes back to the same comment, Jamin, that Canadians aren't wired this way, but take what we've learned, put it into a package where you could do micro agriculture and take the technology to the world. We're going to produce, the world's most wheat and, second most pulse crops and whatever those stats are. I'm sorry, I don't know them all, but we're good at that. And we're going to keep doing that. But how do we actually now take the learnings? And I think this is where we really have to get smart as Canadians, take the learnings we have from doing this well and helping other parts of the world to do it. Because it's that technology transfer. We're kind of afraid of that, but in sort of this training of the world, but our farmers and our agricultural companies and leaders could easily train so many countries in the world. And I think that's an opportunity. Water use, water recycling, all those elements too that Canadians do so well, we could take to the world, I believe, beyond just the crop. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
But we have a great agriculture community here. Really, really, smart, environmentally, aware, really, really good leaders there too. So.
Yeah, good leaders, good companies, Nutrient, Potash, and the other companies like Cargill. Yeah.
Absolutely. They're amazing companies.
Yeah. Thank you, Clark.
Thank you, Jamin.
Thank you, Jamin. Claes, would you like to chat with Clark?
Short question for you. I was laid off.
I just want to interject, Claes. Remind us again, how many languages you speak?
4.
Oh, come on. It was more than that last I checked.
Yeah, no, I don't speak the other ones. I just read them. No, but I have a short
Okay, there you
question.
go.
Okay,
Yes.
I have a short question, like really short. I don't want. You know, I was laid off at the end of September, and then eventually I found out that I need to pay all these memberships for various associations, and I suddenly realized I'm not the only one. We are, all of us individuals and independents. Most of us are connected one way or another through professional associations or LinkedIn groups or anything like that. And then I started thinking, how much do you think, what is the role for these associations when you start looking outwards rather than inwards to Alberta?
Yeah, the associations are, and you're right, Clay, there's a couple pieces in there just to touch on. Like, I know with some of the associations I've been involved with, they're looking at their fees for 2021, and knowing that people are hurting, and even groups like Meetings Mean Business Canada is trying to find ways to make it easier for people to stay involved. So something just a comment. But as far as associations are tremendous collators of smart people. They bring people together, and that can really become an interesting opportunity to take companies globally. The way we've approached associations is I've actually approached a number of them in the last number of months to look at taking what Rainmaker does and making that a service offering of the association. This way we can actually, like, Rainmaker pays commission on any business that comes in our door to the person who brought it to us. If that's an association, they can get the commission. I'm totally fine with that. So it actually can help these associations stay viable, maybe reduce their costs by pointing them to what our service offering, helping and allowing us to go and take them to another market. So the associations, I think, are highly critical, and across Canada they are, and they are, and many of them are hurting too, right? So these are not-for-profits. They're trying to stay alive in a difficult time, but they can't always charge everybody, professionals, what they charged before, because professionals either aren't working or can't afford it. So it's a very delicate discussion. We're trying to find ways to support them and allow them to make some money off what we do. So white label what we do. So I think I want to see them survive and then thrive again when we're back up to speed again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Jackie, you're muted.
Any other questions?
I just had another quick question. This is a where is the opportunity question. And so as we go forward into the recovery that we're all talking about, and that is inevitably coming, where are the bottlenecks and friction points where help will be needed?
Okay. So what was conjuring in my head when you said that, Ed, when you started your question was, keep an eye on government, because government will spend our way through this. So expect that. You may agree with that or not agree with that, but they're gonna put infrastructure projects in place typically to make sure the jobs come back, because private investment will take longer to come to market, typically. So that's one. I don't know if that's the right answer, Ed, but the other way to look at it is, where will the opportunities lie for exponential growth, maybe in infrastructure projects or power, energy, et cetera. Well, I would look at some of the developing countries of the world really have had their, I think they've really come to realization how important their economic development in their country is. If you take some of the African countries or some of the countries who have gone through this as well, maybe different than the Western world, but they've gone through it. And there's an opportunity now that resides for them to actually accelerate their growth out of this. So setting up manufacturing, setting up plants, setting up businesses to get their economy going. I think the developing countries will lean on that. And so you could look at companies that are looking to do more international work. Maybe they're building roads or bridges or buildings or hospitals or whatever that looks like. Huge opportunity in Egypt right now around hospitals. So, there's these pockets of opportunity as these countries now actually, I think, are going to try to use COVID as a springboard to actually get their economy going quickly. The bigger economies will take longer to do that, and they'll require some government stimulus, I think, to get there. So I don't know, Ed, if I'm answering it at all, but that's kind of what I see going forward as far as what's going to get us going again. I think that's what we have to look at.
Thanks so much, Clark,
Yeah.
and really appreciate your stepping out and offering this service to all of us.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate the time. It's a lot of fun, you guys, and I appreciate the chance to chat with you.
Clark, before we go, I was wondering if you would be interested in touching upon your potential interest in internships.
Yeah, for sure. And so Rainmaker, you know, we've used some students a number of times in the past, co-op students, and you know, we have a number of kind of our clients as this program gets more popular for us. You know, we're going to see more and more need for our services in February, March, April, and into the year. Our goal, you know, my dream is to get to as many Canadian companies as possible with this opportunity, because I think it's got a shelf life. I think it's an opportunity for a time. So,
and what can we do to help with that, Clark?
Right, exactly. So coming to that, Jackie. So, you know, in that we're going to need, we need people. We're not a big team here. We ramp up as we need to. And we've been, you know, an SME too, right? So we're growing our business. So there's, you know, there could be opportunities in research. There could be opportunities in certain marketplaces. There could be opportunities with, you know, we heard about Clay's language skills. Those are things that we can really use. And so we've been talking, Jackie and I have reconnected in the last really couple of weeks, and talking about the apprenticeship program. I'm very interested in how that could work for us and how we could put that together, Jackie. And I know that Aaron's the expert on that, and how that might work. So a couple of things with Rainmaker. One, you know, if you know of companies that might be interested in this and want to let me know, we are happy to pay for those. That's just a free option for you, I guess. Then if there's things about Rainmaker that you think you might be really interested in and could really help you grow and expand, I'm open to having that conversation. You know, we'll be ramping ourselves up in, I'll suggest, in going into Q2. I know that's not today, and that's not necessarily what you want to hear, but that's really when our flood of business is going to start to come in and be ramping up. So I'm happy to keep those lines of communication open and discuss that with anybody that might want to. Yeah, so I hope that kind of covers it, Jackie. You know, we're happy that we're interested in working with Higher Landing on larger things, and want to support you guys wherever we can. The other thing is, Jackie sent me some resumes, and I do run into opportunities, and I'm always asked for, hey, do you know somebody who, you know? So I'm happy to share those around too, and hopefully it helps. Hopefully it connects you guys at some point.
Perfect, thank you. So if anyone is interested in an internship, opportunity, paid or unpaid or a derivative thereof, please let me know, and we can have a chat offline. All right, any final questions? It is now 1:15. I'm sorry to have kept you guys, but this has just been so exciting. Really, honestly, Clark, this has been remarkable. I've been getting a lot of comments, Clark, saying how valuable this was to the participants today. So thank you so much. I do hope that you will come back and have a chat with us again in early 2021.
Happy to. Been my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation, Jackie. It was great to be here.